Hello kings, queens, and majesties, welcome to WhaleStat. I am Slice of Otaku, and once you're done watching this video, you'll know 10 of the biggest reasons to skip Yae Miko. Now before the Yae stands burn me at the stake and offer my head to the Shogun, hear me out. I really love this character. Like I said with our last two videos on her, I didn't expect to enjoy playing with her nearly as much as I do, but even still she does have her shortcomings, and at that, it would be unbecoming of me to sing her praises while also ignoring her flaws, and unfortunately, she has a good number of them. Starting at number 10, she's broken in a bad way. Right now, Yae has two pretty obnoxious bugs you may encounter. First up, there's the fact that after using her elemental burst, your camera may be stuck in place for a few seconds afterwards, as in you can't look around. And this is a pretty egregious issue to deal with for sure. Like, despite moving my mouse as fast as I possibly can, Yae will not look where I want her to. Meanwhile, every other character has no problem spinning around on command. Now, I'll be honest, when I was messing around with her in the Spiral Abyss, despite running into this bug time and time again, I just thought something was wrong with my mouse. Now, it seems like this bug in particular is an issue exclusive to PC and mobile players, so if you're on console, you probably won't have any trouble with this. If nothing else is done for Yae, this should most definitely be fixed by Hoyoverse. There is just no way I would ever want to put together a burst build for this character if this just happens each and every time. That being said, the next bug we have is a bit more depressing because it is something that Hoyoverse has had the opportunity to fix for over a year now, dating all the way back to version 1.0 of the game. The totems created by Yae's skill, sometimes when placed in proximity to something like a campfire or even wind spirits, will for whatever reason prioritize attacking that instead of whatever monster is trying to plan your funeral. Now, why do I say Hoyoverse has had a crazy long time to address and fix this? Well, because Fischl's skill has the exact same issue. However, in the case of Fischl, I can see why it would be less of an issue simply because Oz can be rerouted. And I'm not talking about placing him elsewhere because that's not really much of a fix at all. What I mean is, if you attack something, Oz will attack it right along with you, as you'll be able to focus fire. Really and truly, it is only when left idle and without a task that Oz starts to mess around. Now at that, considering Oz and now by extension these totems firing off at wind spirits and campfires serves absolutely no purpose whatsoever, you would think that Hoyoverse would consider fixing this at some point over the last year, especially when planning on using the very same systems for future characters, but I guess not. Yae Miko cannot decide the specific targets of her totem's onslaught, so with that, we are mostly just hoping things work out, and frankly, that is a waste of damage. The biggest combat asset of this character, her elemental skill, is entirely reliant on the game's auto-tracking, which is a problem-ridden mess, and unfortunately, it is pretty apparent in this case. In fact, with this in mind, despite planning on doing so prior, I have ultimately decided not to get any constellations for Yae, simply because at C2, the attack range of her totems is increased by 60%, which to me now only means more complications and less control. And so even if you're watching this and already have the character, perhaps you may want to consider avoiding these constellations of hers. Now, unfortunately, I do have very little faith that Hoyoverse will be patching this issue out on account of the aforementioned history of it, but truly, I would love to be surprised. With this one, we are not talking about buffs, although I'm not too sure why anyone would be adverse to our characters being improved. We are talking about fixes, plain and simple. Which brings us to number 9, no artifact set. This one is pretty straightforward, but most definitely worth noting. Right now, the recommended artifacts for Yae Miko are a jumbled mess. You can mix and match a ton of things together and hope for the best. All the while knowing that eventually a brand new set that is tailor-made just for her will make its way to the game in due time. And by due time, I mean 3 to 4 updates from now, because it will most definitely not be coming with the one slated for update 2.6. And if each update lasts for 40 days, we are looking at something like 120 to 160 days until Yae Miko's true potential is unlocked, if at that. And I don't know about you, but that sounds like a very long time to me. But once it has been released and fingers crossed is actually good, then I'd imagine her rerun would be a whole lot more valuable. Farming for Yae Miko's artifacts right now is more than likely a waste of time, so waiting until there is a specific set for her would be a much better use of your precious resin. Number 8, glass bones and paper skin. Yae is fragile, like really fragile. Her defense stat is horrendously low. Like, if we are talking about direct hits to the face with this character, you're gonna die. I don't see this changing or really desire for this to change, but it is an extra hoop to jump through that will probably take certain precautionary measures such as healers or shielders that if you're just jumping into the game, you may not be all too prepared with. And speaking of being new to the game, number 7, story lock progression. Now, mind you, this is an issue that literally every character in the game same basis to some extent, but Yae Miko most definitely has it the worst. If you're a new player, even if you roll for Yae Miko and are lucky enough to get her, it will be a very long time before you're able to properly power her up. And that is because her Ascension boss materials are false fins, which will require you to not only unlock Enkanomiya, but also the Vishap twins boss fight. Then from there, to get her talents past level 6 without constellations, you'll need to unlock the latest weekly boss fight, which is locked behind even more story. Now, really and truly, when it comes to new players, for as amazing as Genshin Impact may be, whether or not they stick around is a big maybe. As a brand new player with limited characters, that first 5-star or major character is a big deal, so to have to leave them behind pretty early on into your journey is like releasing your starter Pokemon after beating the first gym. It may not be a deal breaker for longtime players, but I know that if I was new, it would be pretty disappointing. Number 6 does not Snapshot. As we've established, Yae Miko's elemental skill is her bread and butter. Generally speaking, this is what we'll mostly be using her for in regards to combat. Now, if you don't know what snapshotting is, to put it very simply for the sake of this video, it is like being a sponge to buffs, retaining them even when these specific triggers may conclude, as opposed to what would otherwise be a momentary dip that only lasts for as long as the trigger is present. Now, comparatively, Oz from Fischl's kit, which fulfills a rather similar role, is able to snapshot. This alone isn't enough to turn me off from a character, but it does dock her value compared to a 4-star character, which is a bit strange. Number 5, no invincibility frames. So despite her elemental skill appearing to warp her from location to location, there are no iframes present within this movement. Iframes meaning invincibility frames, or in other words, brief periods where a character cannot take damage. Now in regards to Yae specifically, this is something that we have talked about in previous videos, so don't get me wrong, I do believe if Yae had iframes on each of her 3 skill charges, with each of them possessing a 4-second cooldown, she would be crazy powerful. The value to be found in something like that would be downright absurd, so I can imagine why Hoyoverse would want to avoid something like that, but man, even with that being the case, it still feels off to see this character literally disappear, but still take damage for something she visually appeared to dodge. And although yes, she would be crazy strong with such reliable invincibility, to be fair, she is ridiculously squishy at the same time, so maybe it wouldn't be so bad. Either way, don't look at this skill of hers and expect to be untouchable. Number 4, her burst cost. So on top of her burst being bugged like we said earlier, it is really hard to obtain on account of its incredibly steep energy cost of 90 and 22-second cooldown. And quite honestly, I'm not sure why it is so demanding, as it is truly not that powerful. I mean, it is asking for more than the Raiden Shogun's burst does, and that does a whole lot. I mean, we can build around Yae's elemental burst, but with it requiring that much downtime, it's really hard to justify the effort in the first place. Not to mention, it also depends on auto tracking, so fingers crossed her burst even hits what you want it to, and they're not out of range, which sadly happens to me a whole lot more than I would like. Number 3, Yae is not a battery. Yae is not an electro battery. She can work as a replacement for Fischl on most teams you would have her on, but frankly, because she is not a reliable source of energy for others, even if she may be superior in certain respects, that alone may serve to make us second guess her inclusion. Fischl and Beidou are a great combination that have been around since the very beginning of the game, but if we have Yae instead, we will inevitably run into energy issues between the two, which is a shame. That being said, we can place Fischl on the same team as Yae, and suddenly, Yae does a whole lot better, which one might argue just goes to show just how good Fischl really is. Number 2, she is a field hog. Yae Miko demands a whole lot of field time to do as she does, and that's usually not such a great thing for a sub DPS character. That's not to say that Yae Miko has to be a sub DPS, but it is presently a better role for her than something like a main DPS. We need her to place her 3 turrets, which takes up time. We need her out on the field to gather the energy necessary for her absurdly costly burst, which takes even more time, and then after using that, we need her to place her turrets yet again. It's just so much time that would be likely better used on our main DPS, allowing us to deal more damage. Number 1, she isn't the best on any team. For the time being, there isn't a team combination in the game where Yae Miko is the absolute best option. In theory, there is always a better choice. For me, I don't really care about that too much because I do like mixing things up with different characters, but I would be remiss to ignore the fact that I have access to every character in the game, affording me the ability to do so. But for most, character collection decisions decisions can be pretty serious, so this reality may be enough to convince some players to look elsewhere and perhaps pick her up once things look better thanks to an artifact set or something like that. But to just throw it out there, I do like having her on a mono Electro team, and undoubtedly her addition to the game provoked me to pay more attention to one of my more neglected 5 stars, Yoimiya, and so now I suddenly use her a whole lot more, so it is truly not all doom and gloom. I mean, I've been using Kokomi pretty consistently since she released, and that's all throughout everyone on the internet saying how terrible she is, so if you are a Yae Miko fan like myself, don't be too discouraged by this video. If a character gets fixed or buffed, we all win regardless, so there is no need to be overly contrarian. Hopefully this video has been helpful or entertaining to you in some way, and if it has been, please consider subscribing to the channel with notifications on, because there is plenty more where this one came from. I have been your host, Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.
The fried tofu is cooked to perfection.